All right, tonight we are doing burgers. And while this is the first burger video we've done, this is definitely not the first time we've made burgers. Burgers are actually a staple in our household. So we probably have them at home once every 2 weeks, maybe even more frequently. We used to make them a ton when we owned our farm. So when we had our cattle, we had tons of ground beef. And so burgers were just a really easy thing to make up at home. I think burgers probably get a bad rap for being unhealthy, which I think is true when you're buying them from a fast food place. But when you're making them at home and you actually know what ingredients are going into it, they're really not that bad. So we're going to walk you through today how to make a super classic burger recipe. So tonight we're going to be making one of our favorite go-to burgers, and it's just a classic smash burger. We're going to top it with some homemade quick pickles, and then Billy's got a new recipe that he found online that we're going to try out that's a Hawaiian Mac Salad. So we'll see how it is. First step is we're going to prep the pickles and the Mac Salad. That way they've got a little bit longer to be able to sit and kind of meld together. For the pickles, I love homemade pickles. You can definitely buy some in the store, but they're just so easy to make and they just bring so much flavor. And I think when you're doing a really simple burger, just having a really good pickle on it is really important. So we bought some small pickling cucumbers, chopped them up into slices. We want to sprinkle them with some salt, and we're going to let that sit for about an hour. And the whole point is we want to draw out all the fluid that's in the cucumber. That way it's basically ready to receive all of that pickle juice that we're going to add back to it. So we're going to let that sit about an hour. And then once that's done, we're going to rinse off all that salt, drain out all that extra fluid, and then we're ready to get started with the brine. So now that our pickles or our cucumbers are draining after we rinsed them, I'm just going to go ahead and cut up some white onion. This is actually just some onion we had left over from a recipe earlier this week. And we're just going to cut this into some thin slices that we can put with the pickles just to add some additional flavor. So I've just cut these just super thin. Just going to go ahead and put these into the bowl. Shake some last bit of water off our cucumbers and put them in here. And so these are just gonna sit on the side while we get the actual brine prepared. So in order to do our brine for the pickles, it's basically just vinegar and sugar. We're doing a bread and butter type pickle, and this is just considered a quick pickle. It's just something that, let it sit an hour, it'll probably be good. Let it sit overnight, it's even better. But they'll last you, a week or so in the fridge. This isn't something that we're canning. And they won't even last a week because I will eat them all. But anyway, this recipe is going to use some white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, white sugar and brown sugar, and then some mustard seed and some turmeric for a little bit of flavor and a little bit of color. So we're going to get all this measured out and we're going to put it in our saucepan. So we're just going to bring all of this to a simmer over medium heat until we can get all of the sugar to dissolve. And then we're going to pour it over our cucumbers and onions. Brine is ready to go. So I like to put the pickles in jars. Even though we're not canning it, you can absolutely just keep everything in this bowl. But I feel like that way I can get it all packed into a jar really good and make sure that every bit of it is covered with the brine. So we're just going to hopefully I can get everything to fit in these 2 jars, then we'll pour it over. You can keep stuffing these things tight. Don't feel like they need to be loose, but we just want to make sure we get a good amount of both the pickles, I'm already calling them pickles, the cucumbers and the onions in each jar.
So we're always on the lookout for new recipes to try, and this is one I came across yesterday. Sounds pretty interesting. It's Hawaiian macaroni salad, or Hawaiian Mac Salad, and we've never been to Hawaii, so we'll make it. Let us know what you think if you've been there. Does it look like, what served over there? This will be our first time making it, and after looking at, a handful of different recipes and trying to kind of distill down what seems to be the must-have pieces, we're going to go with the fact that you've got to overcook the noodles, which is going to be rough. Some of the things that I'm reading, they're saying, add 3 to 5 minutes over the cooking time. So we're going to try that and see how it works. Using Hellmann's mayonnaise or Best Foods mayonnaise, depending on which coast you're on. It seems to be, kind of a hard and fast rule, which is fine. That, Hellmann's is our mayonnaise of choice anyway, so good on us there. The recipe uses half and half, And that seems to be, again, another kind of staple. From reading about it, using just regular milk won't allow the sauce to be thick enough. Some other things though that did sound good is, you know, they have you add just a little bit of apple cider vinegar to the noodles once they've cooked. And, you know, that's something we actually picked up when we were out in Pismo Beach, California a couple years ago when we were doing the Pacific Coast Highway. So we're going to get making it and we'll see how it turns out. We're going to make the dressing first. And the first part of that is we're going to grate an onion. We need about a 1/4 cup of white onion grated. Now we're just going to add our mayonnaise, our half and half, and then our sugar, salt, and pepper. And then we're just going to whisk this together and set it aside and let it chill. While the dressing's resting, we can go ahead and cook our pasta. This package calls for 5 minutes of cook time. We'll add 3 and we'll see how those noodles turn out. So once the pasta is cooked, overcooked, and drained, we're going to go ahead and move it from the colander back into the pot, and we're going to add in our apple cider vinegar and just toss that around to coat everything. Cover it and let it sit and come up to drop down to room temperature. We want it to cool off before we mix in our other ingredients. Once the pasta's cooled, we're going to take our dressing out of the fridge and we're going to add half of the dressing to the pasta. We're going to stir it, cover it back up, and let it sit for another 20 minutes while some of that liquid absorbs. Once the 20 minutes is up, we're going to take the rest of our dressing, add it in, as well as 2 shredded carrots and a 1/4 cup of finely diced celery. First impressions?
I don't hate it. All right, we're ready to make the burgers. Tonight I said we're doing a smash burger, which is actually just one of our favorite go-tos, but we also like to fancy them up a little bit. And we actually published an article last year in RV Today with 4 of our top burger recipes that we often make. So if you have a subscription, head on over there and check out that article and you can see some of the recipes. But one of the other things we covered is just the basics of what goes into making a good burger, which we're going to cover for you here today. One of the first components to a good burger is the bun. And so there's lots of different types of buns you can buy out there, but we typically go for something pretty simple. And here's the reason why. You want the bun to complement the burger. You want to be able to taste the beef, and you also want to be able to taste the bread, but you don't want the bread to overpower it. And so there's different types of buns out there that are too much. These are just regular potato buns. They're nice and soft and squishy, so they're easy to bite into. It's not going to make for like a super tall burger. They toast up really well, and they just have like a nice, slightly sweet flavor without being too much. One of the other types of buns that we really like is a brioche bun. Same thing. It's super soft. It has a little bit of extra sweetness. So depending upon what type of burger you're doing, it might just add a little bit to it. But for just a plain smash burger, we're just going to do some potato buns. Next up, and obviously the star of the show, is the beef itself. Yeah, Rhett came out here just for that. I admit it's still hard for us to buy meat at the grocery store because we used to raise this ourselves. But when it comes to making a burger, it's really important that you get one that has a bit of a higher fat content. The last thing that anybody wants is a super dry burger. And so you can find it at the grocery store anywhere from super lean, where it's maybe 95% beef to 5% fat, all the way down to 80% beef to 20% fat, which 80-20, that's what we recommend for doing a burger. That way you get all of the fat that's going to help keep that burger moist, but it's also going to give it flavor. The next part of the beef is how to actually cook the burger itself. So some people prefer something that's maybe a little bit taller and thicker. These are going to be a smash burger, so we're going to smash them as thin as possible, and this is where you can also stack them multiple times. One of the ways that we actually saw recently to help with getting them smashed down in the pan is actually to add them to the pan as a ball and let it grill just for a little bit on the one side till it's brown. Flip it over and then use that side to smash it down. The fact that it has a little bit of it's cooked on the one side a little bit actually keeps it from sticking to the spatula itself. Previously, I used to use parchment paper to kind of keep it keep the spatula from sticking to it so it'll release, but this is actually working great. The next part is the cheese. And while we love all types of cheeses and we do not discriminate, there are just some that are better than others for burgers. But it's all about balance. So as much as I love blue cheese and some of the other ones that have more of a pungent flavor, it can be a little much on a burger and it just takes away from the actual taste of the beef. There's other cheeses that I absolutely love, like aged cheddar, that are great, but they just don't melt as well. So one of the things that actually fills the gap that's perfect for hamburgers is just plain American cheese. You get the cheese flavor, but you also get a really solid melt on the burger that just, it works perfect for it. So American cheese. The next part is the toppings. And like I already said, we're going to put pickles on this at the end along with some yellow mustard. But the other piece is just some plain white onions. Onions just go a long way in giving a burger a really great taste. So we're actually going to slice some of these up really thin, and then we're going to smash them directly into the patty. So we're going to get one side cooked, put the sliced onions on the top, flip it over and smash it in. That way they actually get just a little bit of a cook in the pan, and they're not completely raw. Adds a great flavor.
All right, moment of truth. Or the best part. Yeah, that's good. Burgers are nice, crispy. You get two sides of my yard on it because, you know, the smash. Pickles taste, you know, awesome. The mayonnaise on the bottom kind of almost makes a little sauce with the beef drippings. That's why we put it down there. And yeah, it's just good. Nothing's overpowering. It's all kind of complimentary.
It's good.